Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. And welcome back, everyone. And continuing with the Surrey Hospice series, and we want to thank again Rebecca Smith for inviting us to come to their event, which was Beginning the Conversation, a Community Forum. Surrey Hospice has done these sort of events for a couple of years now, and here at Depictions Media we've had the honor of being part of it for the second year in a row. And this one next talk was done by Stephen Garret, and it's talking about caring for the caregiver. Reverend Stephen Garret has been actively involved in dying, death, and grief for 25 years. He is the author of When Death Speaks, and his newest book, When Cancer Came Knocking. He believes that it takes a village to die well. I know we've all heard the saying that it takes a village to raise a child, but he may have some points with what he's saying here. And at the most important challenge facing us is ensuring the primary care provider is well taken care of. We don't prepare for death well. Here in North America, there is no practice range for the emotional, spiritual, and physical and mental upheaval that can be completely overwhelming as death comes knocking. Our primary caregivers face an upheaval daily, often without training and little support from families, friends, and community. So, let's give a listen to what Stephen's talk has to say with this, and we'll be right back.
Our next speaker is talking about caring for the caregiver, and I will let him flesh out more about himself. I will introduce Stephen Garret.
Hi. Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks to the sponsors and the hospices and all the volunteers that are here to support this day, and thanks to Don for setting the tone around spirituality. And a lot of my talk around caregiving is to notice the spiritual care that we tend to forget to give. So, just a little bit about me. I used to be a corporate finance guy, a stockbroker. I had a sister die way back in 1988, May the 5th, Thursday night at 6:32. My BMW couldn't get her back. My stock options couldn't get her back. My bank account couldn't get her back. My Hugo Boss suit and my suspenders couldn't get her back. I was pissed at God. And I couldn't understand what had just happened. And back in those days, 30 years ago, the pallbearers used to lower the casket into the grave ourselves. We didn't have machines to do it. It was very physical and very tactile. And that physicalness of it really disturbed me. And as I heard her casket thump in the bottom of the grave, I got angry. And I couldn't understand what happened. And so, on my sister's death, as I heard the thump of her casket in the ground, I said, Jody, I don't know what just happened here, but I'm going to find out. And I meant it. 6 months later, I walked into my senior vice president's office at Burns Fry in downtown Toronto, 50th floor, in my Hugo Boss suit. And I said, pardon my language, I'm the fuck out of here. I don't want your money, I want the truth. He said, what? I said, I'm moving to the West Coast to be a social worker. See you later. And had my sister not died in 1988, May the 5th, I would not be sitting here talking with you all. I'm absolutely grateful that she passed, and I miss her profoundly. So that gives me a bit of a license. I faced some death, my brother's death, my father's death. I was a cremationist for a year and a half at an SCI operation called the Dark Side. The reason I was a cremationist was I spent quite a bit of time traveling in India. I spent some time in Varanasi, India, down by the Ghats. And I noticed there was this guy, this Hindi guy, he's like a yogi, who was tending what they call the Shiva fire, which had been burning for 5,000 years uninterrupted. From that fire, every cremation was lit that happened in that particular section of the Ghats. I sat beside him for 2 weeks, and one day he says, so I went over and sat down with him. He took some ashes and he put them on my head and slapped them on my face and rolled them up and put them in a box and gave it to me, and then he punched me in the shoulder, and the next thing I know, I'm a cremationist at Van Prim. So I've been around a fair bit of death. And what I've noticed is oftentimes we pay a bit too much attention to the one dying and forget to pay attention equally to the one giving care. And it's almost like, because our culture is so death-adverse and so death-frightened, it's like somebody takes the job of being the caregiver for it. Back when I go, oh, thank God, it's not me. And we pull back away and let them take over the dirty task, the tough job, that kind of work. And so we leave our primary caregiver almost alone to do the care work. And so I've noticed that, and I'm starting to realize that we need to start to put the primary caregiver first, just a touch above the one dying, because that primary caregiver is instrumental in holding the family together in order that the death can happen gracefully in the home. If you look quickly at the numbers of people who are dying in British Columbia, we have 1 million baby boomers in BC. 1 million. Start to think about it. How many long-term care home beds do we have? 28,000. How many hospice beds do we have? 260. How many hospital beds? 10,500. We got 1 million people coming at us. Where are we going to die? Likely in the home. Have we death-friendly communities? No. We don't. We have death-averse communities. We have some work to do, and part of it is learning how to take great care of the primary caregiver. That also includes the neighborhood, by the way. I have a dear friend, Jolene, who's a next-door neighbor of mine. Her mother, Jill, died 2 months ago. On my cul-de-sac of 10 homes, only 10 homes, one home went next door to Jill's place and asked what we could do to help. That was my home. Not because I'm a hero or I'm a great guy, just because I know about death and dying. The other 8 homes, they all knew that Jill died, but nobody went to say hi. I'm sorry, can we lost? Can we take Lincoln to play some ball hockey? Can we? Because and I checked with my neighbors, and I said, Sue, have you gone to? We don't know what to say. I understand. We don't know what to do. I understand. So I'm recognizing that we have to start learning as a community how to take better care of the caregivers in our home where the death is occurring. If we don't, we're going to have a mess. Make sense? So, one last thing, and I'll start talking about care for the care provider. My current belief is it takes a village to die well. Remember that old expression, it takes a village to raise a kid? You're right. I got two kids. I needed my neighbors. Those guys were crazy. Well, I needed my neighborhood and my villagers to raise my boys. Wouldn't I need a village to mourn the loss of my father or my mother? I would. But is our village active? My neighborhood is. So my personal passion is to create death-friendly blocks. Because as Don said, death is just death. It's It's neither good nor bad. We made up the Grim Reaper. Bad brand, bad mistake, but we need to rebrand that so we become friends with it. Not that I'm wanting it to come quickly, but it's coming. So let's befriend that. And if we all befriend that, then we're not going to be so afraid to go and talk to Mike. Mike, how's your wife doing? And then, oh, good, can I spend some time with you? Is there something I can do? Can I help you with your car? We'll have to start doing that kind of stuff. All right? So it takes a village to die well. Remember that phrase, you might say it a bit more often. Then I'm rebranding that thing. That is so important. But what happened if death was an opportunity to develop real community? And I think it is. Anyway, we're four dynamic beings. We got a body, clear, so we're physical. We've got a mind, so we're mental. We've got feelings and emotions, so we're emotional and we're spiritual. We're this really cool dynamic. You've got to take care of all four. If you take care of just one, the other three are kind of going to feel left out. So you've got to notice that dynamic and attend to the needs of each of those four quadrants. Mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. The trick is, around this thing is we each have our own thumbprint or our own unique pattern. I'm a really, really physical guy. My wife is really, really emotional. My mother-in-law is neither. She's just a pain in the ass. My mother-in-law is she's an artist. She's very creative. My father-in-law is very emotional. We each have a different preference that we operate through. Knowing that, we have to start to get to know the caregivers to determine which one of those four quadrants is their primary communication piece. Are they physical, are they mental, are they emotional, or are they spiritual? And that's our doorway in. So, if I'm a highly physical guy and I'm a caregiver primarily, my physical needs are going to be most important to me. If I'm mental, my mental needs are going to be most important to me. If I'm spiritual, my spiritual needs, and if I'm emotional, my emotional needs. So we'll have to learn how to map those things out and notice what can we do for their physical, what can we do for their emotional, what can we do for their mental, what can we do for their spiritual. They're all different. Before I talk about those things, though, I want to let you know a few signs of when a primary caregiver isn't feeling taken care of. Because we'll show by our negative behavior that our needs as a caregiver aren't being met. Some of these are, this comes from my friend Robert Masters. He wrote a book called Spiritual Bypassing. He does a lot of death and dying. He's come up with the dark side of grief, which is all the things we do when we're not fully expressing our grief in a healthy way. And as a primary caregiver, we're pre-grieving all the time. So when we don't get that stuff out in a healthy way, we're going to show it to you in an unhealthy way. Some of those are, the caregiver may turn away from their pain by using medications, by using alcohol, too much television, too much texting, too much food, too much avoidance. So if somebody's doing too much of something, that's a sign that there's something inside their body that's not being processed. Especially if they're doing too much alcohol or too much drugs. Sometimes in our nursing staff here, our nurses are drinking too much wine, or they're stealing medications from the pharmacy. Well, we're doing that for a reason. They need to self-medicate. So instead of self-medicating, how do we help somebody express? They may put on a good old brave face and resist being vulnerable. This is very common. I'm sure Don sees this a lot. And I'm good. I got it. I'm great. Especially from men. Like, we're so good at doing that shit. I'm good. Got it. Then we go into our bed and drink a bottle of scotch and cry our pillow. It's like so stupid. So if somebody's putting on the brave face, whether it's male or female, that's a sign that they're lacking some care. Some caregivers may feel ashamed when they express even a little piece of grief. They just feel like so much of a failure that they're grieving. So you watch for that. They may appear to be numb or disconnected and unavailable. I'm sure you felt this in people. They just, like their body's there, but where are they? They numb themselves out. They may deny having any grief at all. My brother, when he was passing, no, I've done my death work. I'm good. I'm going. I'm sorry. You're dying and you're good. Okay, it was in total. And you can feel the difference when somebody's good. You feel it. But when they're using I'm good and it's denial, you know that too. And lastly, and this one comes up, and it's going to get more often, especially if the caregiving time is long, is they may use anger or aggression to push away the deeper feelings that are in their body. So if you've got a caregiver who's getting angry and resentful, you know for sure that they're sitting on a pile of grief that they haven't expressed. They start to resent the scheduling and their lack of time away and all that kind of stuff. So those negative signs, let's turn them into positive calls for help. When you see these things that we call negative, just switch it around in your head. Know that they're calling you for help. And hear it as a call for help. And then go and sit with them. Even though you may not know how to help them, the fact that you went and sat with them is significant. The fact that you noticed they were calling for help and that you responded is more meaningful than you can imagine. Okay? Does that make sense? Any questions about those negative signals? So watch for them. Especially the resentment. When you feel that resentment in the caregiver, you know they're overgiven. Like, when I give too much to my family and don't get enough back, like, I keep a list. Okay, look, I do the bank, I'm taking it, or I go to so when you feel a caregiver doing that, you know for a fact that they've overgiven and they're not being regenerated or re-given to. Just watch for that stuff and notice it. And notice it in yourself. Resentment's a really good one. If I'm feeling resentful, I'm not getting my needs back.
I think there's also probably a lot of contradicting feelings too. Like I'm thinking about someone in particular where it's resentful or I can't do it anymore, but I can't let anybody else do it either.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And now, but I can't do this anymore. Yeah, that's a good one. I can't do this anymore.
I can't do it anymore, but everybody else can do it the best the way that I can do it.
And sometimes what they're saying is, I need some help. I want to continue doing what I'm doing, but I'm exhausted. And being the primary caregiver, especially older primary caregivers, to this North American work ethic, you know, you got to knuckle under. I got to get this job done. At what cost? When my mother had a stroke this year, she's 91. My sister is caring. What a perfect combination. Mom is sick and my sister carry, and my sister is this generous gal that always gives. The first thing I said to my family when I went back here was, okay, Carrie, if you're going to be giving care to Marge, we are setting up a schedule for you. And we're doing it right now. So why? I said, because I know you. You're a care aide. You're going to be giving care to Mom as she lives with you. Where's the break going to be? Oh, she said. So we sat down and we got a 7-day schedule. We blocked off time every single day. 2 hours in the morning, an hour at dinner. Minimal. And a day off on the weekend. And then so where's the care going to come from? Well, we got community nurses come in the mornings for 2 hours. We got family members come in on the Saturday for the whole day. So we scheduled care for my sister so she won't burn out from giving care to my mother. And my mom's relieved because my sister's such a fuss budget. So my mom doesn't like to be fussed over. But that's how Carrie shows her love. So we scheduled time for Carrie to be physically away from the family, to have some girl time with her girlfriends so that she can come back recharged and rejuvenated to be with Mom. Otherwise, she would have burnt out. So, building in rest of the schedule, really, really important. Good nutrition. You know, it's easy when you're a caregiver, you serve yourself first. For me, the caregiver needs to serve themselves first. I need to eat well first. I need to rest well first. I've got to take care of me first. Then I can give care to my lover. So we set up, because my sister's a fast food junkie. So we tried to bring in some good nutrition for her so that her body stays healthy. And I put her husband in charge of that. He's also a junk food guy, so I don't know how well they're doing on the food side, but we thought about that. The other thing that I thought was also important for my sister was every so often go to a girlfriend's place and sleep over there. She rests better and sleeps better at her friend's place because mom's not in the room beside her. And she's not having to be asleep, but listen for mom just in case she's coughing. So to get a night away where she can actually have a deep sleep is really important. This is all care for the physical. The other things that are important to look at too in the home, physically, is the bathroom safe. Like my mom's old, she's 91, she's got a big butt, and getting her up and down onto the toilet's a challenge. So they have those systems you can put around your toilet where mom can hold the handles and lower herself down so my sister doesn't hurt her back by things like that. Are there carpets between my mom's room and the bathroom that mom may trip on because she can't lift her feet up quite as high as she used to be able to, and now she's got a walker? Is there enough room in the hallways? Are there railings that she can grab onto should she be using her feet? Is the stove safe? Is the bathtub accessible? If not, can you get a bathtub with a door that opens and closes so mom can walk in? All these things are all about the physicalness of taking great care of your loved one and taking great care of you physically. Has the family got the equipment they need? And is there an appropriate bed from them? We can rent this stuff. We can get donations from the Red Cross. You can bring in hospital beds. You can bring in lizards. All kinds of things you can do if you think about the caregiver and the one you're giving care to. So that whole piece of physicalness is really important. Most importantly is how safe. Is there a doorway that's open and there's stairs down? Because if mom happens to lose her balance and there's a stair where she falls the wrong way, she's down the stairs and she's gone. So there's all kinds of things to look for. So that's all around the realm of taking great care of the caregiver and your loved one physically. Also exercise. Just getting out for a walk in the park or in the woods and breathing and moving the body in a way that's got nothing to do with the care. Or being good to the body because you need your body to take care of your loved one. Any questions about the physical side? It's the one that's most obvious, but it's often the one we forget about. We forget about taking care of this because it's so obvious. Right?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you do the opportunity to talk about the caregiver receiving regular exercise, do you look at suggestions, especially if they aren't a person that is normally active? Do you have them bring that into their need for self-care? Do you maybe make some suggestions like this would be a time for you to take a break and then maybe go to something that's close by that's like mindful meditation or something that's a walk or inside the path or
Go gardening.
Something that
knitting, anything.
Anything. So whatever the exercise aspect.
Whatever works for them.
Okay.
And each person, this is the thing, when I think about grief and loss and care for the caregiver, it's not science, it's art. Because, look around here right now. Look, is there anyone that looks like you? No. So that means each person has a unique recipe for being cared for. Each person has a unique process for grieving. I worked with a woman in New York State once. Her daughter was run down by a drunk driver late at night. She was grief-stricken. Didn't know what to do. She'd been to a lot of grief counseling, but she wasn't a talking person. She wasn't a mental person. She was a creative person. So I was asking her, well, what hobbies have you got? She said, well, I like to paint. I thought, whoa. I said to her, would you paint me in grief? And she started to cry on the phone. She was crying. She did a series of 9 paintings called Pain Has No Color. Her expression of grief was through art. It wasn't through the mouth, it wasn't through the body. So she expressed to me with these 9 paintings her grief, and I could see, and I said to her, okay, I'll do this deal with you. You express your grief to me through paintings, but you're going to need to send me a picture of the painting. And then you and I are going to sit down on the telephone, and I'm going to translate the painting into words so I can make sure I've understood your painting. And she said, okay, I'll do that. So her first painting was black and red and blue and purple and big moves. And she took the pellet and stabbed the canvas. So I said, "Okay, I get how angry you were, and how pissed off you were, and how hot your hatred of that driver was. That might choose climb, because I'm translating her art into language, and I was getting her, and she was feeling rotten." So, in our care for people, your question sent me off a bit of a story, but each person will have their own way of taking care of themselves physically. It's our job as an end-of-life artist to figure out what their way is. Maybe they just want to do some pottery, or maybe they just want to wash some dishes. They want to do something with their body. Let's find out what works for them. Maybe it's banging a drum. Maybe it's digging in the garden. Maybe it's, who knows what it is. They'll know, and when you hit it, they'll smile. I'll do that. Maybe it's just going for a drive in the country, and the driving motion is enough for their body. So each person will have different physical remedies for taking good care of themselves. Some may be drinking more water. And actually, all of us need to do a bit more of that, drinking more water, especially more being emotional. Because emotions are very depleting of water. So we need to make sure our caregivers are drinking lots of water. Also, this whole physical thing, giving care, and that is a 24/7 proposition. And it's really important that we know that, and that we really do find ways to give our care providers breaks from the house, and breaks from the routine. Because if it's a loved one taking care of a loved one, the responsibility is high. And they just don't want anybody else to do it. They don't want to drop anything out. It's a real demanding piece physically, especially if the care provider is older. Oftentimes the care provider will predecease the one who's dying because they're so given. They've got nothing left to give. Okay, any more questions about physically? Please. Would you say your name for me?
Sure.
Hi.
I sense challenges geographically. I heard you say you were back east and set this up. And what I've seen is the person who is the resident caregiver and the siblings coming in to help set everything up in the evening. The unsaid words show up in many ways. Counter to that is the person might refuse the care that the well-meaning siblings set up. And so I didn't hear too much collaboration being discussed with who the resident sibling is and the actual older parent, or because sometimes you can't predict length of time before death. It can be a long process, and it truly is what you're seeing. It takes a village to support both. But that village is across Canada. And that's a big factor, I think, in Canada for some of us.
Families all over the place.
Well, yeah, and that resident sibling, like many times, I'm exhausted, I don't like it, and so forth, but you're all getting on the point and leaving. So maybe that's another conversation instead of physical side.
And my mom was there for all conversations.
Great.
She wasn't
I think
excluded.
that's good.
Totally there.
That they're in the center.
Yeah.
They are the person that is going to receive.
I kind of think of the center as the infinity sign. There's the caregiver and the care receiver. The two were in the center.
Well, I just think of it as a circle and all the rings around that person and who are on the rings.
Yeah.
Where are they?
So Marge was there for the whole conversation.
Great.
Because we wouldn't set care up for her unless they were over.
Yeah. Well, but it's good that that's, if I can sometimes have to be reminded of good intentions.
Yeah. Also, where my sister Sue is flying in from Whitehorse to back cleanup for Carrie. So she's coming in, will be living with Carrie for a while to give her some siblings.
So that
yeah.
Because I think we forget, as siblings, if we're leaving, who's one of us, we don't know what it feels like.
And my sister had some resentment when I left. So well, you get to leave. I felt it immediately. Pardon me. I flew away. Oops.
Yes.
Carrie, you're right. I am leaving. I'll be back. People here won't be back. And Sue's coming in here, so we've got this thing now too. It can be for the one who's a caregiver and the other guys take off back to their homes. There is this resentment. So I'm stuck with it.
Yeah. I was just reflective of the situations that I, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've also found that hugging is really helpful physically. I'm a very physical guy. Hugging. And sometimes that contact is really helpful, especially for the primary caregiver. They may feel given out physically, and to be replenished with a hug sometimes is quite helpful. My sister Terry likes to hug, so when she's feeling depleted, her husband's been well trained by her and my mother. He just goes and just holds her in her head, and she cries. And she catches her breath, and then she shakes it off. She can go back into sleep.
She would want to send him to a place that wasn't helpful for the caregiver.
If it's not going to work,
yeah, you wouldn't want to use that.
yeah. And if she's not a hugger, then you don't.
It would feel worse.
Yeah, but you find the medicine or the remedy that's going to work for them specifically. And it's like our thumbprint. It's very unique. Okay. Mentally, I got to tell you, and most of you will probably know, at the end of life there are a slew of tasks that go on. Some before death, some after death, but there's 150 odd details that have to be handled. So the mental fatigue of that, plus the fatigue of have the meds been delivered on time, has mom eaten, have I done the shopping, is there a car? The mental aspect can be huge. And so what we're doing with my sister, we have her a journal. We have her a whole program so she can jot stuff down. We have all check marks for her. So we try and get her mind out onto paper where we can see it and work with it here. So it's not just carrying all the details. Mental fatigue can be brutal on you, and then you start to get forgetful, and then you miss the meds, and then you feel like shit, and then you get them, and it just gets into a big jumbled mess. So some things you can do to hold all those details and put this on paper on the fridge. You can keep a daily journal. You can have a care buddy to talk with who has similar challenges and similar experiences and has some wisdom. And a care buddy that's a little better at the job than you are, so you can rely on them. You can have an end-of-life plan prepared and then all ready to go binder, all done. So all those details are taken care of and discussed by the family. You can have your funeral arrangements done in advance, so it's all handled. So all those details can be taken care of well in advance, so the caregiver can mentally attack each day's tasks, not have to worry about the huge picture of end of life. So those are some things you can do mentally. And keeping a daily journal, like a caregiver's journal, just because sometimes stuff goes on, you just want to get it out of your body. Like, I can't stand picking up my bed anymore. But you don't want to say that out loud to you because it's not really true. Just write it in the journal and scratch it in the journal and draw a picture of it. Just get out of your body, get those thoughts on paper so they're no longer here to disturb the care that you're giving to your loved one. So you keep too many thoughts up here, the mind gets jumbled. It's like your laptop. You've got too many programs running, it's going to crash. I've got too many programs running here, I'm going to crash. So mentally, just have those lists and those notes and those journals, and a care buddy to go over it with you, to check on you, to make sure how you're doing mentally. Okay? If somebody is strong intellectually, this is even more important. And the lists and the journals are even more important because that's their language. My wife is very, very intellectual. And so she's got books and notes and lists and all kinds of stuff. So that's what I would do for her in her primary caregiver language. I would be more mental with her and give her the recipe she needs and the relief she needs mentally. That will help her body relax. That will help her emotions release and will help her spirit come out. For the mind's not so full. Make sense? Yeah. This whole piece of emotion, man, it's it's a roller coaster. It's like we don't know whether we're pre-grieving or grieving or angry. It's just like this whole crazy thing. And oftentimes there's not even any words that we can put to it. It's just like yelling or screaming or crying or laughing or being. It's like a storm. And to be well emotionally, what's most important is to have an emotional buddy you can dump with, who's not going to judge you or criticize you or make you wrong for being angry at your mom because you're such a bitch. Because that's what's coming up for you emotionally. So this kind of expression and getting rid of the emotions as a primary caregiver is very important. We can help them release their emotions and help them let go of all the stuff that they're feeling. They're going to get a little tired. It's like, anybody compost in your kitchen? You got a compost bucket? You leave the compost in the bucket too long, you can feel the bucket starting to get hot, and then it starts to stink, and then the kitchen's a mess. We're an emotional compost bucket here. If we hold our emotions too long, they're going to start to get hotter. They're going to start to get stinky, and then we're going to come out sideways, and there's going to be a mess all over the counter. So to take care of our emotions, it's really important to find somebody, likely not a family member, maybe somebody like Don, who can sit his butt down with you and just say, tell me some more. And blah, blah, blah. Tell me some more. Blah, blah, blah. Tell me some more. Right? And just let it go. For men, it's a little different. Women tend to be more expressive and generous with their emotions. Us guys, sometimes we're not quite that way. So it's done sometimes with guys, I go walking with them. And then stuff starts to happen. You know, or we do something, we go for a bit of a jog, or we do something physical. You know, build something, and out they come. But they come out differently for men than they do with women. I remember I was in a long-term with Carol one day, and I was saying to a nurse there, I said, how do the guys do with the grief? She said, they don't grieve at all. I said, there's two guys playing cribbage. I said, watch this. Watch those two guys for a minute. She's watching, they're not breathing. I said, well, wait for it. Wait for it. And they're doing the 15-2, 15-4, and they're moving the pegs. And one guy says to the other guy, how you doing? The guy says, shitty. 15-8 pairs 10. I said, did you see it? She said, what? It was right there! Right? It was that simple. Shitty. But in that word and the way he moved his hands, you could see him expressing his grief. So men and women do it differently. And notice that, not all the time, but generally speaking, there are these emotional tendencies, and men tend to be a bit more stoic. So it's sometimes harder work for us to get our men to release. When I was lowering my sister into the ground in her grave, my father came over to me and said, now don't cry. My dad was born, you know, way back, and he fought in the Second World War, and he was this guy, you know, and I said, Dad, it's Jody. I'll cry if I want to. And I could ball my eyes out. But there's this tendency that we teach our young men that crying is a sign of weakness. For me, crying is a sign of courage and wisdom. It takes guts to cry in front of other men. And so I ignored my father for the first time in my life. Good. So, and sometimes we may need the support of a grief counselor. We may need somebody who's trained in grief to help us unwind what's going on. Sometimes our grief can be very complex, because our grief isn't just about death of a loved one's body. It's about the divorce I had 40 years ago. It's about the pet I lost when I was 6. It's about the job I got fired from. There's all these endings that we have that are mini deaths that mimic death, and that we grieve about. But it's like, I just feel silly to cry about my job. It's just a job for God. But there was an end, and there was things that we lost that we have no more because we lost the job. So all that stuff, it's like a hairball. You know, a hairball starts with one hair. So there's a grief hairball in our body. It starts with one loss. And that gets, I mean, imagine if I didn't cry over the loss of my sister Jody. So that would be in my body. And then something else gets lost and gets attached, and we have this hairball of mess. So sometimes our grief is so full and complex, we need the support of an amazing grief counselor to help us unwind it and get clear on what we're grieving. So that also for me is a sign of courage to ask for help. Hey, I got a problem over here. I'm an emotional mess. I got grief coming on my knee. I don't know what to do. Can I come and see you? I really need some help. It's a sign of courage and wisdom. So sometimes your caregiver will need some professional help. And there's no shame in that at all. If they can't afford it, find a hospice. It's got an amazing grief counselor. Okay?
Where it's all free.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, totally.
This is not a simple job. It's very complex, and I think you do a great job.
Yeah.
Or they do it, yeah.
And lastly, the fourth quadrant is the spiritual quadrant. Don did a great job talking about that. And, I am as well an interfaith minister. What I've noticed is that spirituality is like that thread that links all religions. All religions are amazing. They all have a beauty of them. They all have some beasts and everything in between. And so spirituality for me is that web that weaves through all of that stuff. And for me, there's 7.5 billion different ways to express spirituality. And my job is, when I'm working with people around spirit, is to find out what their spiritual language is and speak their language to them. It's not about me converting them to being, this spiritual freak. No, it's not. It's about me learning what their expression of spirituality is and helping them notice that. And if we're taking great care of people spiritually, that's a nice foundation that the mental, emotional, and physical can sit on top of. But often it's the one that gets missed. I mean, if you really sit here and notice and take a look at somebody sitting close to you, and you look at their eyes, there's something in that body that isn't in that body when it's dead. It's palpable. You can feel it. And we all kind of, if you all just take a look at somebody sitting close to you and just notice them, the part of it is like, because there is somebody home in there. There's not just a body.
So Stephen has laid out some pretty definite steps and ways of thinking of things that so we can give the best of care as that caregiver to those who we are caring for. Most often, you're probably caring for that loved one, and probably that loved one that took care of you for most of your life. So, do put yourself first so that you can give back from the deepest depths within inside of yourself. And we wish you well in all that. And thank you for listening to this particular episode of Community Living with Stephen Garret and his talk at Surrey Hospice event. The beginning of the conversation at Community Forum 2020. We want to again thank Rebecca Smith for bringing us in, and Surrey Hospice for all the great work that they actually do. We will talk to you again next week. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.